Hey, Wargamers, can you hear me? Is that okay? I think so. All right. So today, Games Workshop released a new FAQ. It's pretty big. It's the big FAQ for April 2018. So big FAQ 1 2018. They're going to do another one in the fall, and then they'll do chapter approved as well. So, yeah, this is the first of a series of FAQs for the new year. And so we're going to go over that today. That's what we're going to do right now. If you're a long-term viewer of the channel, you know that I have a different background. I'm in my new place now and am in the process of getting everything ready. Moved this last weekend and there was a big blizzard, so a little bit behind on the timeline there, but looking forward to getting things back to normal by the end of this week, and if not, then early next week. So that'll be good. All right. So yeah, basically, I think we'll go over the basic rulebook FAQ and look at what it means for people in general, but more specifically for Tau. Go through the Tau FAQ because, yes, it is time for that. It's been more than 2 weeks since the Codex release, so we will go over the rules for that, or the FAQ for that, and then we'll go over the Imperial Armor Index Xenos FAQ as well because, yes, they came out with that as well. So, all right. Hey, IROQUO12. I'm not even going to try. But yeah, okay. Let's get into it. I was actually going to do a screen share for this, but having a little bit harder time with that than I thought. So yeah. All right. So one thing that people have been asking is, where are the FAQ? It's actually pretty easy. Just go to the Warhammer community page, go to the FAQ section, and then you have to click on the Warhammer 40,000 icon. It's defaulted to the Age of Sigmar set of FAQs, so you won't see it right away. You got to hit the 40K one, and then you can just hit the icon for the book that you want, whether that's the basic rules, the Tau Codex, or Imperial Armor Index Xenos. All right, so yeah, let's go over the general stuff real quick here. I'm not going to go through every single FAQ or every single change just because we'd be here for hours. But yeah, so we'll go over some general stuff. John D, I see your question about drones. We will get to that in just a minute. Yeah. All right. So ignoring wounds, it says that some units have the ability to allow them to ignore the damage suffered each time it loses a wound. Example, disgustingly resilient. If a model has more than one of such ability, you can only use one of those abilities each time the model loses a wound. This is good for a couple of reasons. One is it makes things just a little bit more streamlined. You pick the best one instead of taking multiple. Like before, you could use a stimulant injector and then use, Sense of Stone from an ethereal, and you just be rolling the same dice over and over and over again. And it's not like you could potentially roll multiple dice and just say, well, if one of them is a 6, then I'm good, in cases where you would have multiple different levels of feel no painness, right? So if you had like a 5+++ and a 6+++, you could just roll 2 dice and say if one's a 6, you're good because maybe your 6 was a 5 and your 5 was a 4 or something, right? So you'd lose out even though you had one that would pass. So this streamlines it for one thing. It also gives you more reason to like take ethereals and stuff, especially with the loss of stimulant injectors, which we'll get to in a minute. This is a fine thing, and it makes things a little bit more susceptible to death, which especially considering the prevalence of feel no pain type things in certain armies, sounds like a good thing to me. All right. Okay. Okay. Organized play. Right. Let's get to that because that's a big question. For organized events, they came out with new restrictions or guidelines, depending on how you want to look at it. At first, I thought these were beta rules, but they're not. They're just straight up FAQ. And it says for organized play for games between 1,001 points and 2,000 points, you can only take 3 maximum of a data sheet. So you could only take, 3. You could only take, 3 commanders in a 2,000 point army, regardless of how many detachments you have. Of course, the maximum there is 3, but in other armies, like for Tyranids, for example, you could only take 3 Hive Tyrants if you wanted to. You couldn't take more than 3 Hive Tyrants in a single 2,000 point army, which is good. I mean, is basically the commander restriction for all armies, with the exception that it's not restricted per detachment. So maybe at some point we'll see a relaxation of the commander restriction and just use this instead. It still disproportionately hurts Tau because, Tau, you have to bring multiple detachments, and other armies you won't have to get the same number of HQ choices. But in this case, at least, it does make things a little bit more even. All right, but big question there. I guess there are two things about it. One is that it doesn't apply to dedicated transports or troops, nor does it apply to units that are basically summoned or you bring onto the field using reinforcement points. And so the big question there for Tau players is, how do you treat drones? And I think the rules as written interpretation and the most solid interpretation is that don't worry about drones. The main reason for that is that the drones reference their own tactical drones data sheet, but they're still part of the parent unit data sheet, right? Like, you take a unit of Pathfinders, you add 2 drones to it. It doesn't. You're not actually bringing two different units, for the purposes of army construction. You're still bringing just one unit, and they're using the Pathfinder data sheet. Yes, it references the drone data sheet, but that's kind of a technicality. If they wanted to make things more streamlined, they would just have all the drone stuff as part of the Pathfinder data sheet, and it just kind of is a formatting thing at this point. So I would not worry about drones. There's the added complication, of course, that like if you took 2 drones with a Fire Warrior team, they wouldn't, if you were using this interpretation that the 3 data sheet limit did apply to drones as part of a unit, you'd be in a weird situation because troop choices don't count. So drones taken as part of a Fire Warrior squad wouldn't count for that, but drones taken as part of a Pathfinder squad would, and that's really inconsistent and weird. And so I just don't see that being a thing at all. So basically, I wouldn't worry about drones. I think drones taken as unit upgrades do not count towards this, and that's the way I'm going to play it, unless GW or a tournament organizer tells me otherwise. But of course, that does mean that you could only bring 3 tactical drone units. So 3 units of shield drones, 3 units of gun drones, whatever you want to do in a single army, which, that's not great for Tau players. I'm not of the opinion that tactical drone spam is really the way to go, given the price increases anyway, and the changes to savior protocols are still good, but I don't think that they are the end-all be-all of army composition for Tau. So, limiting to 3 is okay. It's not fantastic, but it does give you more incentive to take drones as unit upgrades, which is good because really I didn't see. The only reason why I would take drones as unit upgrades was if you didn't have access to the drone otherwise, like recon drone or the pulse accelerator drone, something like that, or if you didn't have enough points for a full unit. Now you have some reason to actually do that because it helps you skirt around the data sheet restriction. So, it's not great, but I wasn't going to take more than 3 units of drones, tactical drones proper anyway. So I don't see this as being a huge obstacle for a lot of Tau players, at least for myself. Okay, let's move on to, oh man, I forgot how long this thing was. I looked at it this afternoon and haven't looked at it since then. Oh, guys, this is actually a really cool one. So battalion detachments now give 5 command points, and brigades now give 12. So that's a 2/3, additional 2 command points. So 2/3 increase for battalions and an additional 3. So 1/3 increase for brigades. So you're getting a relative strengthening of battalions over brigades here, which I think is noteworthy. It means that battalions are going to be more efficient in a lot of ways than taking brigades. So take that. I think this helps elite armies a lot more than it helps armies that have a little bit more easy access to brigades. So like Tyranids have really easy access to brigades. Tau actually have not terrible access to brigades. So, but if you're building your army to be suit heavy or something like that, this helps you out quite a bit. I think it helps armies like Blood Angels out a lot more, just because Blood Angels at least the armies that I've seen have been pretty command point starved. So having access to more command points is definitely a good thing for anyone, but especially for those guys. So I'm excited about this. I think it'll actually have a pretty important consequence for how the game is played in terms of what the army composition is, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But overall, I mean, I'm not going to complain about having more command points. All right. Okay, they clarified that if you shoot at a unit and somebody takes away a model and then you can't see the unit anymore, can you still finish shooting? And the answer is yes. I didn't think that was that shocking of a clarification to begin with. Random. Yeah. Oh, if you have 2 units that are shooting at each other inside of a piece of terrain, do they both get the benefit of cover? Yes. That's something that I'm actually happy that they clarified, just because it doesn't necessarily make intuitive sense, and so it's useful to have that specified. They also clarified the deal with stratagem. So basically, if you bring a detachment from an army or from a codex that gives you access to that codex's stratagems, and so long as the stratagem uses the appropriate keywords, you can use stratagems that are from sub factions other than the ones that you're bringing. So you could bring a Death Guard. I don't know. I'm not going to come up with an example right now, but you could use multiple different sub faction stratagems, even if you're only playing one sub-faction, which is something that people have been saying as rules as written, and it seems like Games Workshop is like, yeah, that's the point. So that's, there's not really a situation for Tau that would come into play, because those are all keyword specific, but for other armies, that's a pretty big deal. Okay, here's a couple other really important ones. One, if a unit has fly, you do not measure vertical distance when charging into, anywhere. So basically the implication here is that when you move with things that fly, you only measure horizontal distance, which I think is a little bit, this is a challenge to the interpretation that I had of the rule. It says, when a unit is chosen to make a charge move and fails the charge. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. Okay, hold on, guys. All right. When a unit that can fly declares a charge move against a unit that is on the upper levels of a ruin, do I need to include the vertical distance when making a subsequent charge move for the unit? No. A unit that can fly effectively ignores vertical distances when making a charge move. Note, though, that the charging unit must still be within 12 inches, measured diagonally, to be able to declare a charge in the first place. So you could be 12 inches away from something and only need a 2-inch charge to actually make it in, which for Tau, if you were going to be bringing Farsight, that's an important thing. But I think the bigger implication here is that Tau, things with fly do not need to measure vertical distances. And actually, what do you guys think about that? Is that true? Because it does, you still have to be within 12 inches to make the charge, therefore meaning that the actual distance between the two models is important in that context. But for the movement, you only need, whatever the x-axis is. You don't need to go the vertical distance. So I don't know. I think that's actually pretty open to over interpretation, because it doesn't actually say that you don't measure vertical distance when moving at all, right? Like, it doesn't say that you can move and end up being 60 inches away from where you were. If you had like a 60-inch tall building in the middle of the board, it doesn't mean that you can actually move more than 60 inches. But actually, I guess the implication there is actually still straightforward, is that you cannot move more than your maximum distance, i.e. you can't move more than 12 inches in a charge, or you can't move more than 8 inches with like a crisis suit. But if you needed to measure the distance, you only measure the horizontal distance. You don't measure the vertical distance. But yeah, so vertical distance still counts for total movement, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are using it to determine how far you moved or something like that. All right. But yeah, that's kind of a spicy meatball. I don't know what to call it. That's weird. I would have preferred a little bit more clarification on that, because they kind of take this stance but don't give context for all the other implications associated with it. All right. Hey, golly, first time 40K player, huh? 500 points every 3 months. So you already did the first 500 points, but you want to do 2 hammerheads and 2 broadsides for your next 500. It really depends on what you're going up against and what people are bringing. 2 hammerheads and 2 broadsides is probably a little heavy-handed for 1,000 points. I would maybe think more about something like a Riptide or more Fire Warriors or something like that, getting a little bit more volume of fire and diversification in your list. But yeah, I mean, I certainly like having, certainly some of that sounds like a good idea in a general sense. Okay. Okay, so if you're using another thing, like if you're using early warning override, can you shoot at a character if they are not the closest unit? And the answer is no. And I guess on that note, they did codify the beta rules on characters, saying that if a character is being blocked by, or if a character is not the closest unit, even if the actual closest unit is not within line of sight, you can't shoot at the character. So like something that you could do here, right, is if you had a commander, a cold start commander that was, like 10 inches away, you could deep strike some drones in a building that are out of line of sight, that are 9 inches away from a unit, and then they wouldn't be able to shoot at the commander. Of course, in that situation, the opponent would be able to move and better position themselves and avoid that situation. But assuming they didn't move, that'd be kind of the thing. So the takeaway there is you can exploit this through positioning of other units to screen for your characters. Basically, using weak units, put them out of line of sight. They can screen for your characters, and your characters are not going to be able to be shot, even though they are the only visible unit. This is a big deal for us as Tau, just because, like, it makes things really, really annoying, right? Because if your whole goal is to shoot at things, even if they're not visible. Like you can't shoot at the closest unit because it's not visible to you, and you can't shoot at the character because it's a character. So you're kind of screwed either way. So I mean that's a pretty big nerf for shooting in general, but it goes both ways. So you can exploit that to your benefit as well. And like maybe this is a good use for fast units that I wouldn't normally take, like maybe a piranha or something like that. You could have it scoot around, or tetras, things like that. It opens up some play for fast units that aren't going to necessarily contribute that much offensively. You can use them more as a screening unit and hide them behind line of sight blocking terrain and force your opponent to deal with them. Tactical reserves. So they changed tactical reserves to mean that you can't put more than half of your army's power in reserve. And so where did they it has to like be at least half the power level. Where did that go? I don't know where that went. But basically it just means that you have to be conservative when deploying your deep strikers. Like you can't have just like a couple units of drones on the board and then a bunch of other stuff in deep strike. You have to actually have it be somewhat balanced, and I don't think that's going to be a big problem for Tau. But it's something to be aware of. It's probably better for us in the long run, actually, just because some of the armies that would normally do that are not Tau are going to be basically hurt more than we are by that. So that's a pretty useful thing. All right. All right. All right. I think we've gone through like the big important parts of the main FAQ. Yes, Sakia is good for tetras. It's good for anything that has one-shot marker lights. So fire blades, even though they're hitting on twos, but it builds in some resilience to them. They can move and shoot more easily. It's better for tetras. Anything with a small number of shots, Sakia is actually pretty good for. And so if you want to take like an Outrider detachment, that's Sakia, or even a Supreme Command detachment, if you just want some fire blades in there, you could do that. I probably wouldn't do that second one. That seems a little inefficient, but you could do it. Yes. Okay, hold on. Okay. So guys, remind me, is the reserves deep striking on turn 2 and not turn 1? Is that a beta rule, or is that actually included? You guys look at that while I'm looking at. Okay, it is a beta rule. Okay, good, because it wasn't in the FAQ, and so I was pretty sure it was a beta rule, but I wanted to make sure. Yeah, so there's a new beta rule that says that units that are deep striking cannot deep strike outside of their deployment zone in the first turn. So this, if you're trying to deep strike enforcer suit or something, this is going to hurt you in some ways. You're not going to get that same alpha strike, but at the same time, it makes you more resistant, or gives you a better chance against heavy alpha strike armies. So it's going to prevent you from getting alpha struck on right away and not getting a chance to shoot. And again, shooting is kind of our thing, so more opportunities to shoot is always good. It also makes cold stars even that much better, because cold stars don't need a deep strike. They just zip on over wherever they want to go. Cold star don't care. Like, so that's fine too. I can deal with that. It gives us a little bit more opportunity to position and everything like that. And of course, if you do need to deep strike, you can deep strike into your deployment zone. That's really takes the edge off the blade, if you will. It means that you're primarily going to be using that deep strike as a defensive move in terms of either counter deploying relative to a really fast unit, or just keeping that deep strike unit on or off the table and out of harm's way for that first turn potentially. So, I mean, there's some play there, but yeah, if you're planning on deep striking a bunch of stuff turn one with this new beta rule, you probably are not going to be doing that anymore. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts on the general FAQ? It did make Tyranid Swarm even better, allows turn one board control big time. Yes. Yeah, it makes board control much more important, because you can't deep strike as a counter deployment or basically as a crowd control method. It allows them to deep strike more, or allows them to get better board control, and also allows them to spread out more, meaning that it's harder for you to deep strike in subsequent turns. So it definitely hurts deep strikers in a lot of ways. Farsight bomb, yeah, if you're bringing a Farsight bomb, it's going to be really tough on you, because that's going to be a lot of points in that Farsight bomb that you're not going to be able to use turn one. So that does make that harder too. Asking about Cold Star commanders, would I bring more Cold Star commanders than Enforcer commanders? Absolutely. I think the Cold Star is certainly one of the best units in the Codex. The Enforcer is good if you were just looking for a deep strike unit, but the the Cold Star is really the way to go. You can't argue with 40-inch movement, and if it's Viorla, ignoring the penalty to shoot assault weapons is pretty darn awesome. Would Homing Beacon break those beta rules? No, because it does not say that they can ignore the limitation on first turn strike. It just says that they're able to deep strike on it. So it doesn't, the beta rule would take precedence, I believe. So the new detachment limit further screws commanders, right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything to hurt commanders, because commanders already had a 1 per detachment limit, and there's a 3 detachment limit on 2,000 point armies, let's say, or anything between 1 and 2,000 points, which is what people are normally bringing. And so you could only bring in 3 commanders anyway. If you're playing under 2,000 points, you could only bring 2 detachments. You can only bring 2 of the same data slate. Playing more than 2,000 points, you can bring 4. You can bring 4 of any data slate. So it's exactly the same. It just it doesn't hurt commanders anymore. It just hurts other armies, not as much as the commander limit hurts Tau, if that makes sense. So it brings them a little bit more in line with Tau, but not as much. It's not a perfect match, which is probably, it's the poor man's version of the commander limit for all armies, which is fine. I mean, it's better than nothing, I think, in a lot of ways, in terms of controlling those other armies' spammy units. It has some, negative side effects for things that really aren't a problem. But honestly, in the past, when I've played in the Highlander format, which is you can only bring 1 of each unit unless you meet certain criteria, I've always had a lot of fun with that format. So I'm excited to see this restriction in place more generally, just because I like seeing more diverse armies, and that makes for a more enjoyable game for me. And so if that means that you can only bring 3 units of shield drones, that's fine. I think there's plenty of ways around it. And for Tau especially, the things that we'd want to bring more than 3 of are little things, primarily troops, which are exempt, and then drones, which we have alternative ways of getting drones as unit upgrades. So I really think Tau get off pretty well with that change. Okay, let's so Actel Z pronunciation. Sorry. No, you can't take a high outburst burst cannon and three other weapons at this time. Let's get on to the Tau FAQ, and we can explain why. Okay, so the new Tau FAQ, they came out with a new FAQ for Tau because it's been more than 2 weeks, and this is the new operating model. So they'll come out with a new FAQ for every codex a couple weeks after it's come out. It's been a little bit longer for Tau just because of the way it landed with the Adepticon, but yeah, maybe that means that we got a better FAQ. I think they addressed a lot of things that were good. So that's actually the very first thing in the Tau FAQ is Commander and XV86 Cold Star Battlesuit War Gear options. Change the first bullet point to read, this model may replace its high output burst cannon and missile pod with 2 items from the ranged weapons and or support system list. So if you take something, if you're looking to take 3 weapons plus a high output burst cannon, you cannot do that, because in order to take that 3rd weapon, you need to switch out, you need to kind of tap into those 2 extra slots that are currently occupied by the high output burst cannon and the missile pod. And so you can't replace just the missile pod. You have to replace both the high output burst cannon and the missile pod, and only the options that you have available to you from the ranged weapons list does not include the high output burst cannon. Cyclic Ion Blaster. All right. Yep. There's actually not a lot of really surprising things in there, with the exception of a few things that are not surprising, but really important because I've seen so many internet debates on them. So in Index Xenos 2, the Stimulant Injector was a piece of war gear, but now it's a stratagem. Can I still bring the war gear option per the flowchart? No, you can't. You can't bring a Stimulant Injector anymore, so stop trying. Basically, you cannot equip your Riptide with a vintage Stimulant Injector from the Index. That is dead and gone. You can only use the stratagem now, which is the way that I've assumed that it's going to be the entire time. So it doesn't sting that much anymore. That's fine, especially because, again, it gives you more reason to bring ethereals, and the Stimulant Injector stratagem is way better than a Stimulant Injector, a piece of war gear anyway. And so I'd rather have the Stimulant Injector stratagem take a different support system like Advanced Targeting System instead of the Stimulant Injector war gear. The other big thing that is not surprising, but good that they addressed, is that the Cadre Fireblade makes you fire 3 times and not 4, like some people misinterpreted the rules to mean. So if you have a Fire Warrior unit that is shooting at a target within half range and is nearby a Cadre Fireblade, they have 3 dice per model to shoot instead of just 2, which is good. That's the way that 95% of the people played it, but there still was 5% that beat that dead horse and stood on their soapbox until the end. So yeah. Hey, Forza Wild, thanks for watching. Glad to have you here. All right. They do specify some stuff with drone placement, like if you're trying to deploy inside a fortification and drones can't go in there, where do they go? They go next to the fortification, which is kind of weird. Yeah, but whatever, that's fine. They also address an issue with the multi-tracker. Let's say you brought three fusion blasters and a flamer, or I guess 2 fusion. Okay, let's say you brought a fusion blaster and a flamer on a crisis suit and also had a multi-tracker, which I would never do that load up, but let's say you did. And your fusion blaster was targeting a unit of more than 5 models. Again, terrible example, but let's go with it. But you're out of range for your flamer. Do you still get the benefit of multi-tracker? And the answer is yes. Basically, you have to. You can use the multi-tracker so long as all weapons that can reach the target are firing at that target. which is good. That's a good question. There's also a long-running issue since the codex release about breach and clear interacting with marker lights. Don't worry about it. You can use breach and clear stratagem as even if you have marker lights on a target. And do you use experimental weaponry stratagem before or after you determine the number of shots? Use it before. So you can't roll your 3d6 flamer shots on your Yvara and then roll 3 ones and say, oh yeah, I'm going to use the Borkan stratagem and re-roll these. You have to say, no, I'm going to safeguard against a poor roll. I'm going to use a stratagem, and then you roll, and then you can re-roll if you want. So yeah, not a very extensive FAQ. I'm guessing that that will change over time. They do say like the new stuff is highlighted in magenta, so like technically everything should be in magenta because it's a new thing. At first when I looked at it, I was looking for all the magenta stuff and there wasn't any. So so don't be fooled by that. All right. Yeah, Dakistar Commander, that's not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. Cold Star with Burst Cannon, Missile Pod, Cyclic, Ion Blaster, and Advanced Targeting System. Looks like a Swiss Army knife now. Yeah, that would look like a Swiss Army knife. I don't know if I would necessarily go with that output. In general, I think this is true for crisis suits. It's also true for commanders that you want to spec your suits for a specific role and taking a diverse set of weapons kind of goes against that. It's generally best to pick a role and stick to it. Does the Fireblade Volley Fire affect pulse pistol shots? I can't remember if that's included in the list of things or not. I know it affects rifles and carbines. That seems like something that would be on the list because I know blasters definitely are not. But if so, yeah. I'll check that in a second here. Let's go to the last one. Imperial Armor Index Xenos. This is probably the one I was most excited for in terms of what Games Workshop was going to do. And I wasn't necessarily expecting it to come out now. I know, the last time when they did Chapter Proof, they addressed Forge World stuff, and I wasn't expecting them to do that. But it wasn't a guarantee they were going to address Forge World stuff in this big FAQ either. Actually, now that I say that, I think they might have actually specifically said that they were going to, so never mind. All right, yeah, thanks for checking on that, guys. Yeah, pulse pistols are affected by that. Yeah. Okay, so looking at the Index Xenos FAQ, there's a few things that are worth noting. There's a bunch of stuff about Oryx, don't care. A bunch of stuff about Elder, don't care. Bunch of stuff about Tau too. And most importantly, like they didn't take away the sept rule for Yvaras or say that Yvaras have to be Tau sept or anything like that, which was something that some people were concerned about because the Borkan Yvara is so much better than the standard Yvara. Okay, let's Okay. All right, question. The Varb also uses Nova Reactor ability to do an overcharge burst. Do I use the Nova Reactor profile for only one of its applicable weapons or on both of them? This is something that I emailed Games Workshop about, I don't know, over a year ago or something, and I got a response back that said you fire both of them. And I put this on the interwebs. I put it on Facebook, on my Invasive Wargaming Facebook page, and and some people treated it like FAQ, which it wasn't. I was trying to be very upfront about this is just an email and this is what they said. Take it or leave it. Do what you want with it. Some people accused me of doctoring the email, like I went to some extreme length to make up this email chain. But no. So finally, once and for all, Games Workshop has given us the same answer that I got in that email however long ago, and that is that you fire both weapons using the Nova profile. So that means you get your boosted flamer and you get your boosted ionic discharge cannon. You get both of them, which means yes, the Yvara is just as good as you want it to be. I'd be pretty sad if they took this away from us, or clarified it in a way that was contradictory to my current understanding, just because I think that's a really nice selling point of the model. But it's even if they did go the other way, it's still you always go with the flamer basically, right? There's no question. It's still good. Okay. Lakai says your friends won't play against me unless I promise not to bring the Yvara. Yeah, I have certainly been in situations where I do not bring the Yvara because it's too good, and that's just a decision you have to make. I don't encourage people to bring the most beat stick list to every single game they play for that reason. Like, it's fun to try out new things, and the people that you're playing with might have different expectations or experience levels. And so it's good to explore those different types of games with them. But yeah, like at a tournament, bring the Yvara, bring your most beat stick list. But if you're just hanging out at, a friend's house or something, you can try out some other stuff. Like, bring some Vespid. Vespid are much better than they used to be, but they're still not as good as I'd like them to be. So yeah, bring them. Bring Remora stealth drones. Bring crude hounds, and whatever else you want to bring. Fun stuff. Bring razor shark fighters. Go for it. There's all sorts of stuff that I think is fun to play with that is just not as competitive as I'd like it to be. So I like it. I like playing games where my opponents are clear that they don't want to play against Yvara or something like that, because it kind of gives me permission to not go down that road and instead use some of those other units that I have that I want to see on the table, but don't want to bring because they're just dead weight in a more competitive setting. So yeah, have fun with that. Oh yeah, Barracudas. I love the Barracuda model. So good. Just really got hurt with the current rule set. So bring your Barracuda and play with that. Can Murmura stealth drones embark inside a devilfish? No, they can't. Oh yeah, and then so they kind of gave us this sad speech at the end of the Imperial Armor FAQ about how, we can't do everything. We can't support all of our models forever, which is a little different than what they said at the beginning of 8th. But they're saying, no, we can't do it forever. And, we're sorry, but this is the best we can do. And so they gave us rules for Narlock Riders and Great Narlocks, but they don't give us any points for it. So they're only for open and narrative play. And so let's take a look at those. Let's talk about the Narlocks, guys. All right, Narlock Riders. Movement 7, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 4, wounds 4, attacks 2, leadership 6, save 4 up. Unit contains 3 Narlock Riders. Can take 3 more. Each model has a crew rifle and rides a Narlock. Right, so it's basically a Kroot on top of a Narlock. Narlock makes 2 attacks in addition to any attacks made by the Kroot rider. Those are strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage. Not bad. It's a super cool model, and having the -1 AP on that is worth having. When they advance 6 inches instead of rolling D6, and they add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by the Narlock. So that's actually pretty darn nice in close combat. It's a shame that, well, it's not a shame, but it's too bad that you don't get more than a couple attacks. But in a unit of 3, that's 6 attacks hitting on 3s, and then wounding most things on a 3 or a 2, or a lot of things on a 2, a lot of infantry on a 2. So that's certainly not bad. And if you surround them with some Crude Hounds or surround them with a bunch of Crude Carnivores, they're gonna do some damage. And they're only 5 power, which, not bad. Not a bad price for them. And their save is a 4-up, which is a lot better than a standard Crude Carnivore with 4 wounds. So yeah, I mean, I can dig that. That's 12 Crude wounds at a 4-up save and toughness 4. So that's actually not bad, I think. Great Gnarlex, movement 7, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, strength 7, toughness 6, 9 wounds, attacks 4, leadership 6, save 4-up. He has a crushing beak and razor talons. Razor talons, strength 7, AP minus 3, D3 damage. Nice. It can be equipped with either a bolt thrower or a twin Kroot gun. Kroot gun, rapid fire. Okay, so it's the same as a normal Kroot gun. It's just 2 of them, and then the bolt thrower is assault D6, strength 6, minus 1 AP. That's pretty cool. Crushing beak. Each time a model with crushing beak makes a paladin move, you can pick an enemy unit within 1 inches, roll a D6. Ooh, guys, this is cool. It's the Gnarlock eating a guy. On a 4-up, that unit suffers a D3 mortal wounds. That's pretty nice. Like, yeah, I can dig that, especially with 9 wounds. Like, he's going to be around long, a fair amount of time to do that. So that's pretty, yeah, I can dig that a lot, actually. Baggage harness, add 1 to leadership characteristic for Kroot units within 6 inches of a great Gnarlock. So you can give up your crushing beak for a leadership boost. I don't think I'd do that. I think I'd stay with the crushing beak and have, yeah. Because +1 leadership isn't going to make that big of a difference, but D3 mortal wounds might. All right. Yeah, so those are the FAQs for Tau, or in general and for Tau. Big takeaway things that the Yvaras are, still as good as you wanted them to be. That vertical distance is of variable importance now. What else? Oh, the restriction on drones. Or not on drones, but on data sheets. Again, if I'm interpreting that correct, don't worry about it. And I kind of like it for encouraging people to bring drones from other sources. Yeah, Stephen, don't worry. This will be as a video. It will go up tomorrow morning. So if you're watching this after the fact, it's definitely tomorrow morning at least. So. All right. Yeah. So I think the Tau fared pretty well. There weren't any points corrections or anything like that. Everything everything that hurt the Tau seemed to hurt other people more, and so I like it. I think it's fine. I like the FAQ. I think it works out pretty well. Gunline's getting buffed by nerfing deep strike charges. Yeah, Gunlines definitely get a buff to some extent, but again, I think the mobility is still really important. Potentially even more so because of that deep strike restriction. Since you still want to do the things that you would do in Deep Strike, now you have to figure out a different way to do it. And if you can do that, like using a Cold Star, you are basically ignoring the nerf to deep striking and forcing your opponent to deal with that. So, like, yes, it's good for gun lines. It means that you're not going to get deep struck on right away, but it also, that shouldn't be taken as a direction to not be aggressive, because I think being aggressive is an important component of the game. Spoken as a multiple GT winner and No, guys, that's not that's not me. But that is my opinion as a long term player. So certainly not a person with the accolades, but I can sit in a room and talk to the internet about it, right? Okay. Oh, Nick, you're asking about the vertical distance things. There's an FAQ that basically says when you are charging, you still have to be within 12 inches, but if you have the fly keyword, you only measure the horizontal distance. So let's say you have like a triangle where the hypotenuse is 12 inches, but this distance here is only 2 inches. You only need 2 inches to make the charge. Yeah. Yeah, the power level change to reserve is the biggest balance. Yeah, but that is a beta rule, so we will see how that pans out. I do think it's interesting to note that they incorporate both their beta rules into the FAQ. They did make some slight changes, so that's a good thing. It means that they are taking in criticism and refining their rules, which shouldn't be. I mean, that's basically been established at this point anyway. That we're dealing with Good Guy Games Workshop, New Games Workshop, and that they've been talking to us. So that's good, but it also means that, or also suggests that maybe they are, very serious about these beta rules and they're not likely to walk away from them. So the power level change to reserves is likely to manifest in some way. Will Tau FAQ update? Yeah, it'll get updated eventually. Like the next time they do another big update, I think is it September, October, something like that. It'll get updated at that point. As a Tyranid player, do you think the Biovore point increase was necessary? I don't know about necessary, but definitely not unnecessary. Biovores are good. Biovores are good. They not only give you access to mortal wounds, but they also really mess with your opponent's deployment and movement. So, yeah, having Biovores be a little bit more expensive feels right. If you're doing a points list army, how do you know what's half your power level? You still have power level for your army. You just have to. It's just not the basis for your army construction. So you still have to. You just have to go and reference the power level in the codex, which, yeah, is an extra step and it's a pain in the butt, but you should do that ahead of time when making your army list and figure out, okay, these are the things that I might be deep striking. Can I do that or not? Buff for Flyrants. What? I personally don't, but then if you'll have tyrant point decrease. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think Hive Tyrant point increase was, I think, was good, especially with, I think the point increase combined with the 3 data sheet restriction works out fairly well in terms of overall game balance. So that fly measuring rule, does that change how the Manta works? I don't think so. Battlescribe calculates both at the same time. Yep. So Battlescribe will give you power level and points if you want. Of course, a few things about Battlescribe, and who knows, maybe I should make a video on this, but always, double check. You should always have your own independent rules. So you should have the codex, you should have the rule book, you should have the index, whatever you're basing it off of. You should own a copy of that. You should not rely on Battlescribe, and you should not pirate. Use the actual books. Because that's going to be your definitive source of knowledge. Yeah. All right. So let me look at the chat, see if I missed anything big. All right. I don't think I missed a bunch of stuff. So there's a question about Storm Surge being a battle suit. Yeah, I mean, should be a battle suit, shouldn't be a battle suit. I think the reason why they don't have it be a battle suit is largely for competition with the Hammerhead. I think they just think it would be too, it would be too good if it was a battle suit, which I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah. What is my favorite Tyranid unit? Well, it kind of depends. So if we're talking about the way the model actually looks, I think the Haru specs. I love the Haru specs I think is great. But from a gameplay mechanic, it has to be the Hive Tyrant. Is it Tau or Tau? It's Tau. So if you were thinking it was Tau, and you are now learning that it is Tau, I'm sorry, but it's Tau. But all right, cool. So yeah, guys, this was just like a really informal thing. Obviously, if you have stuck around this long, congratulations, you win nothing. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get on here, talk about the FAQ because I want to do a video about it. Obviously, I don't have my studio set up yet, working on that, especially with the lighting. Like, it's terrible. But that's a priority for the next couple of days here, is to get the lighting set up. And of course, stuff on the walls and all that. But I'll do a video on that once I get everything set up, so you guys see what's going on. All right. Oh yeah, lictors are good. I like the lictor model. Okay, cool. Well, anything else? Questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts? If not, we will call the stream here. And yeah. All right, super exciting end to the video. 3, 2, 1. Yes, it will be uploaded as a video. Don't worry. Goodbye. Happy wargaming. And see you guys in the next video.